Coming up, a group of dads work together to unite a school community.
We decided the best people who can take care of our kids are who? Are us.
A teacher takes on a whole new role in a student's life.
My math teacher, out of all the people.
And finally, I'll share some memories of the best father I've ever known, my own, George Hartman.
I love you, Dad. Happy Valentine's Day.
You want to throw that away?
No.
All of that and more on this special Father's Day edition of On the Road. Hello, I'm Steve Hartman. Thanks for joining us for our CBS News streaming series, where every month or so, we revisit some of my favorite stories from my 25 years on the road. In 1972, Father's Day became a national holiday and is now celebrated on the third Sunday of June. I celebrate with my kids, who made me a father starting with George in 2008, Emmett a couple years later, and finally Merrill in 2013. Fathering has been a pretty good gig for me, even better than this one, and that's saying something. Through the years, I've told stories of dads and father figures from all walks of life doing wonderful things for their kids. So, let's take a look at some of those now. First up, a daughter navigating a difficult situation gets some unexpected help. Take a look. For most of her life, 21-year-old Brittany Peck of Elyria, Ohio, felt caught in the middle, torn between two men she truly adored. Her father, Todd Bachman, and her stepdad, Todd Sandrosky.
I felt like maybe I need to just,
Pick?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
What a position to be in.
I know. It was really, really tough. So I was in kindergarten.
This all began back when Brittany was 6. Her parents split up, then got wrapped up in a bitter custody battle.
It was riddled with lawyers and courtrooms.
Her dad, a short-haul truck driver, wanted custody and certainly had no interest in sharing his daughter with Brittany's new stepdad, who says the ill feelings were mutual.
We did not get along. We tolerated each other. That's probably the best way to describe it.
Over the years, things did improve slightly. They shared custody, and both men came to realize they were both pretty good fathers. But there was still a little tension in the air when last month the two families got together for Brittany's wedding. Her biological father was supposed to walk her down the aisle, when all of a sudden he bolted to the front.
I said, I'll be back. And that's when I walked down the aisle, grabbed Todd, and said, come on.
He said, you had just as much of a part of this in raising these kids as I did. He goes, you're going to come and help me walk our daughter down the aisle.
Our daughter. He said, our daughter.
And that's when I lost it.
Hand in hand, they went back to get Brittany. Then arm in arm, they gave their daughter the wedding she always dreamed of.
It meant the world to me. It was the happiest moment of my life walking down the aisle with both of them.
In the presence of God and
Parents and step-parents are often at odds, but the wisest eventually realize that getting along isn't just best for the kids. It's best for them.
If that individual accepts your children and treats them as his own, how can you not have respect for somebody like that?
He invited me to be part of that day. And that's something that can never be taken away. It'll always be there.
A little wedding day advice from the fathers of the bride. The best wedding gift Brittany could have asked for. As Brittany and her stepdad showed us, you don't have to be biologically related to be a great dad. This next papa made that clear dozens of times over. Let's watch. When 48-year-old Lamont Thomas became an empty nester, it was the end of a parenting legend. Back in 2001, this divorced father of two took on a foster kid named Michael Perez.
He was a good young man, and I just hated to see him in the system.
Eventually, Lamont adopted Michael, who now works as a nurse.
I don't believe that I would be the person that I am today without the morals that he instilled in me, the family, the extended family that I have now.
How extended is that family?
I tell you, if I had enough fingers and toes to count.
Turns out Michael was just the beginning.
That's Marcus.
Over the next 15 years,
Jamie.
Lamont fostered more than 30 kids here in Buffalo, New York,
Hartman.
and adopted 5 of them.
JJ.
And again, he did this all on his own and with all of his heart.
Every child that I have had, it was my goal to make a difference in their lives.
You fell in love with these kids, huh?
Yeah. Proud of them.
And you retired from fostering.
I did.
Go fishing?
Oh yeah, did plenty of fishing.
Trips?
Love all of that.
Of course, we wouldn't be here today if that was still the case.
Yes, sir.
It really was a shocker. I didn't expect for him to restart and to do it all over again. It's just amazing.
Today, Lamont is back in the game in a big way. Not long ago, he took on 5 siblings, all under the age of 6.
Major, are you eating books?
Lamont, who works as a caterer, says he did have other plans for these years.
I didn't think it was this.
But those plans have now been shattered with mayhem. When was the last time you went fishing?
It wasn't this summer.
Papa! Papa!
Yes.
Lamont decided to foster all 5 after he found out they were going to be permanently split up.
Yes.
And to guarantee they stay a family,
Okay.
last
Good
month,
job.
he adopted them.
Very good.
You are hereby adopted.
I had to help them. They deserve to be raised together.
Fortunately, Lamont has a great support system through church and friends, and he's not opposed to adding a wife to the mix, should such a saint exist.
Don't lick my mirror, please.
But if not, he's also fine going it alone, for as long as it takes to make the difference. Have you calculated when the last one's going to be out of high school?
We got a lot of years to go, but it's all right. It's all good.
Lamont Thomas, definitely all good. I think we'll have to give it a few more years before Lamont is ready to take that fishing trip. After a quick break now, how a group of dads stepped up and worked together to stop violence at a Louisiana school. Stay with us. Welcome back. Thanks for being with us. Now I want to introduce you to a group of dads who saw a problem and worked together to find a solution with nothing but love, compassion, and a few corny dad jokes. Take a look. Not many good news stories begin in such a bad news way. It happened last month here at Southwood High School in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Plagued with violence.
Over the course of 3 days,
Another fight.
23 students arrested for fighting.
Massive police response to
But strangely, there hasn't been another incident since. Perhaps in part because of this most unusual crisis intervention team. Nobody here has a degree in school counseling. No majors in criminal justice. No. Your qualifications are?
With dads, we decided the best people who can take care of our kids are who? Or us.
So Michael Lafitte started Dads on Duty,
We're out doing what we do for our babies.
a group of about 40 Southwood dads who now hang out at the school in shifts.
Let's go.
Today, any negative energy that enters the building has to run a gauntlet of good parenting.
What's going on, buddy?
You moving fast. I like that horse.
I immediately felt a form of safety.
We stopped fighting, people started going to class.
How could that be?
You ever heard of a look?
A look? Dads have the power to do that?
Yes. Not many people know it, but yes.
Let's go, let's go.
But it's not just the firm stares and stern warnings.
Let's make it to class, my son.
It's also the dad jokes.
They just make funny jokes like, oh, hey, your student's untied, but it's really not untied.
And they hate it. They're so embarrassed by it.
And it's that perfect mix of tough love and gentle ribbing that dads do so well that has helped transform this school.
The school has really just been like happy and you can feel it.
Which is why the dads plan to keep coming to Southwood indefinitely.
Because not everybody has the father figure at home.
Or a male, period, in their life.
So just to be here makes a big difference.
Do you think you stumbled onto something here?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Have a good morning.
They'd like to start chapters of Dads on Duty throughout Louisiana.
What's up, baby boy?
And hope to eventually take on the country.
All right.
Without a fight. Dads on Duty turned out to be our most popular story of 2021, and chapters have now popped up all over the country. It's been pretty great to see how those dads made such a difference. A lot of parents, rightly, put emphasis on education with their kids, but few have gone to the lengths that this next dad did to ensure a brighter future for his kids. Let's watch.
It was a moment 22 years in the making as Fred Vautour walked his daughter Alicia to the graduation podium.
And this degree is being presented by her father, Fred Vautour, of the Custodial Department of Boston College.
Alicia is not his first kid to graduate from Boston College. Far from it. In fact, all 5 of his kids have graduated from BC, which is one of the most prestigious universities in the country. And to think, all that remarkable success from this one humble beginning.
I love being here.
Fred works overnights as a janitor at BC, and over the years he has parlayed this relatively low-paying job into a gold mine, thanks to a university policy that says if you work here, your kids can go here for free, assuming they're accepted, which is not easy. And yet, back in '98, his oldest daughter Amy became the first to get in.
She broke down crying and I broke down crying, and we hugged each other, and there's pictures in my house of that. This is the acceptance letter that we got.
He still keeps the letter on his wall.
Me and my wife struggled through a lot of years, but seeing that made it all worthwhile.
It hangs here in the dining room, next to the one his son got a few years later, and his other son. In fact, today his house is pretty much wallpapered in Boston College acceptance letters, as each and every kid eventually got in.
He really opened the opportunity for us.
And it was never a question of if we would go to college or not. We will go to college, and that's what he instilled in us. So
the kids say Dad and Mom didn't pressure them to succeed. They just set the expectation and provided the means, no matter what it took.
You live for your kids so they could have a better life than I had.
Fred insists his kids are now all smarter than he is. But you have to wonder, over the past 2 decades, Fred has taken Boston College for nearly $700,000 worth of free tuition, which makes him no dummy. I'm guessing his final daughter's graduation is a relief to the school, but not to Fred, who says these college years flew by too fast.
I was 44 at the time, and now I'm 62, and it's like, wow. You know?
You glad it's over?
No.
When it comes to kids, watching them reach the top is definitely a reward.
5 have landed.
But Fred says climbing the ladder with them is even better, even if you have to vacuum the steps along the way.
Fred's kids have all gone on to successful careers and blessed him with 7 grandchildren. Meanwhile, he's still happily working the night shift at BC. He says he loves the peace and quiet at night on campus and doesn't plan to retire anytime soon. His picture even hangs on the wall outside the theater he cleans. Don't go away, we've got more stories coming up. Welcome back. We hope you're enjoying this special show celebrating fathers of all kinds. This next story is a truly moving one. For math teacher Finn Lanning, being a dad wasn't in the cards until a student named Damien came into the picture. Take a look at this transformation.
It was Aurora, Colorado, summer break 2019, when we first met middle school math teacher Finn Lanning and Damien, the student he just couldn't shake.
Do you know how many pencils I went through this year?
Like way more than you should have?
Yeah.
Damien says Mr. Lanning was definitely one of his better teachers.
When a teacher doesn't bother me over and over again, that's better.
You have a low bar.
Yeah, leave me alone, I'll leave you alone, I'll get my work done.
He's smart and funny, and he was always a student that stood out. And then one day he just came to me and said, I'm not coming back to school.
Finn sat him down at that table, right then and there.
And what I found out was his story.
He learned Damien was in foster care, that he had kidney disease. And because social services couldn't find a foster family willing and able to meet his medical needs, Damien had to leave school and move into a hospital. But here's the real kicker. The kid needs a transplant, desperately. And a lot of times you can't get a transplant if you don't have a stable home to return to after surgery.
It hit me like a ton of bricks. I mean, you just can't sit across from somebody that you care about and hear them say something like that and know that you have room to help.
And that's how Finn became a foster parent. He took in Damien, dialysis needs and all, even though prior to that hallway meeting, he'd been a confirmed bachelor who delighted in his childlessness.
I never thought that I could leave school and take one of them with me and still survive, right?
Damien says, right back at you, bro.
I was like, yes, I'd get out of the hospital, but I was like, my math teacher, out of all the people.
They got along famously.
Oh, yeah.
Although Damien refused to get too excited. He'd seen fairy tales fall apart before.
Rematch? It's kind of bad thinking about that, but some people actually do that. Like, they'll like just kick you out they'll be happy with you one day and then just kick you out the next.
I suppose only time will let you trust.
Yeah.
It's been nearly 2 years since we first told this story. Damien was able to get that transplant, and he's now a much healthier, very typical 15-year-old.
Even though it's been absolutely the hardest thing I've ever done, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I'll keep him.
A few months ago, Finn adopted Damien. Teacher and student, now father and son.
To be accepted feels like a dream come true.
Proof that sometimes fairy tales do end happily ever after.
You know, when we first met Finn, he told us he felt like you had to earn the title dad, and he wasn't sure if he had yet. But I think it's safe to say he's earned it now. Down in Alabama, we met another man who certainly earned the name Dad. And we also met his grateful son, who surprised him in a big way.
At a small university near Birmingham, Alabama, we found a big guy. 6'8", 310-pound senior offensive lineman George Grimwade is a dominating force on the Samford Bulldog football team. Over the last 4 years, the name Grimwade has become synonymous with muscle and might. But this story will surely change that.
George is a kind person, and he's proven that through life many, many times. That's what this is all about.
Michael Musto is George's stepdad. He married George's mom, Michelle, when George was in 5th grade, and the two have gotten along famously ever since.
He was just a sweet young man.
Until Michael Musto came along, George never had a regular male presence in his life.
I was trying to win.
So they bonded, over football especially.
You didn't get to see the game last night.
It's just how we've always communicated, through sports.
Is it more, or I love you?
It's definitely neither of those, I'll be honest with you. I think we just talk football. I don't think there's any grunting or...
But it's safe to say you've never said it as well as you said it that day.
That's the ultimate way to show him how much I love him, was to do this.
Earlier this month, George pulled off one of the most memorable moments in Samford football history. A sneak play that his stepdad especially never saw coming.
It's official.
The play was certified by a judge, designed by seam ripper, needle and thread, and executed by number 76 himself.
I jogged over to my dad, and my dad goes, "What are you doing?"
He's got some papers in his hand. I don't know what he's doing.
Hey, you know how much I love you, right?
Yeah.
And how I always treasure the time I have with you.
Yeah.
And now you're my world. I got my last name changed. Look at my jersey.
I saw my name on that jersey. It was like, wow, this kid really loves me. I couldn't get the words out of my mouth.
I love you so much, Dad.
Took my voice away. He's just the best.
For a stepdad, it's hard to imagine a higher honor. For a football player, hard to imagine a greater show of strength. Because George didn't just change the letters on his jersey that day. He put his heart on his sleeve, and the name for that is Hero.
Some things are bigger than sports, and that moment was definitely one of them. Coming up next, a tribute to a father CBS News audiences met many times through the years. My own dad, George Hartman. That story's next. Welcome back. In my career at CBS, there was almost no one I featured on TV as many times as my own dad. We did 8 stories together before he passed away in January 2019. Here's our final story.
His was the only story I was literally born to tell. The story of an auto worker dad who raised 3 children in total anonymity. Until one day his youngest son, that would be me, put a TV control room in his garage and rigged the house with cameras, just to see what the retiree did all day. Which wasn't much.
And yet, to my surprise, that story resonated with viewers. Not because he was my dad, but because he was every dad of that generation.
He lived to be 92 and never once answered a cell phone successfully.
Hello.
He had Starbucks one time.
I want a tall macchiato.
A caramel macchiato.
What a ripoff.
With an extra shot of cheapskate.
You don't have to finish it if you don't want to.
Well, I'm not going to throw it away for $3.35.
My dad never got over the Great Depression.
Good gosh.
Even when staring into splendor, he could still spot a way to save money.
I see a dime and I see some pennies.
I see a couple of quarters. There's a good $1.50 out there, Dad.
Well, it wouldn't be that hard to get it.
Dad, we're not going to do that.
And yet, he never skimped on conversation.
That dog real?
He'd talk to anyone.
How much was gas in 1955?
Often about the history of gas prices.
You hear that?
What's that?
10 cents a gallon in Kansas at the gas war.
Really? That's interesting.
My dad was an accidental humorist.
Slow it down.
He rarely meant to be funny. But he was deliberate with his love.
Say a prayer.
By far, the most selfless man I knew.
So try to think of one thing you ever bought for yourself.
Well, I can't think of anything offhand.
I can't either.
His death makes me an orphan. My mom died a few years ago, and I can tell you this is a unique kind of emptiness, when there is no one left on earth to love you quite so unconditionally.
The last story I did with my dad was when we had to move him out of his house in Toledo. He had to decide what was worth saving, and in the end, it all came down to faith,
rosary,
yeah,
and family.
I love you, Dad. Happy Valentine's Day.
You want to throw that away?
No.
A great parent does a lot more than make you wash behind your ears. A great parent is a miracle worker who can mold a helpless blob like this one into a child who feels invincible. And although losing such a parent can feel like kryptonite, remembering them in all their glory can make your heart fly.
Obviously, I wish he was still here today, but I'm not sure he'd want to be, what with gas prices the way they are. Well, that's our special for today. To all of the fathers and grandfathers watching, we wish you a very happy Father's Day. And for brand new On the Road stories, don't forget to tune in to the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell every Friday. Until then, I'm Steve Hartman. Stay kind.